Big day today for the farmers. They're out in force across the country, places like York and obviously London. They were there in the early hours while it was still dark, queuing up in the tractors. They've had enough, haven't they, of being treated like fools, squeezed by the supermarkets and squeezed by the government in a needless and sorry way. We've got to support our farmers, let's face it. We need farmers about 3 times a day if you're having regular meals. We don't need politicians, do we? We don't need commentators and advisors and civil servants. We need farmers. So show your support by sharing their tweets and sharing their posts on Facebook. Show the mainstream media we don't need them to get the message out. We can do it ourselves. An amusing story. It just makes me laugh the way this legislation in this country is going. I'll read out my monologue, it will explain it better, and it's a bit tongue-in-cheek, so, you can't be down all the time, can you? I mean, some people actually are. Interestingly, an attempt to introduce a bill banning first cousin marriages has been put forward in the House of Commons. An Indian Muslim MP has given detailed explanation as to why this won't work and would be impossible to enforce. Apparently, in certain cultures, it's said to grow family bonds, not to mention health problems too, like cleft palate, vision impairment and mental health issues, which puts a strain on the health services. According to Bradford City Council, over 17,000 children have mental health issues. The PDF file shows that it's about 1 in 8 ratio, and that's just for the Bradford area. The independent MP for Dewsbury, Iqbal Mohammed, said it will be very difficult to impose. He has a point, as Muslim communities are very guarded about how their society within a society works, with many places operating their own Sharia law, banking and other unique legislation. We have to remember our own chinless wonders in the aristocracy have favoured marrying their cousins in the past. It kept a tight knit on finances and dodged many a bullet from interloping gold diggers. Henry VIII married his cousin. He also disposed of sell-by-date wives in a very unusual manner. Once his Mr. Wigley grew tired of the said wench, she often left this world through blunt force trauma to the back of the neck, delivered by an executioner's axe. Thankfully, randy old Henry decided on a less intrusive approach to terminating a marriage and left the Catholic Church with a start-up company known as the Church of England, so he could procure a way forward without the bloodshed. His new method of divorce has proved immensely popular over time. I'm just glad marrying your cousin isn't enforceable or a statutory requirement, as my first cousin was already batshit crazy and decidedly unattractive, with halitosis and an aversion to personal hygiene. You've got to think of the kids. Next week in Parliament, they'll discuss how to eradicate fungal nail infections by introducing a toe tax by Ed Miliband. He's already voted in favour of it. His efforts to stop the planet from boiling through toe tax. Meanwhile, Mulder and Scully are still trying to fathom out why alien spaceships don't stop at planet Earth too long and work out their penchant for abducting overweight Americans who live in trailer parks instead of taking scientists and inventors. A point that's always puzzled me. Sorry, but I had to bring it in about the royals because they've had their own share of lunatics because of the way they've tried to keep the money within the family. I mean, this isn't anything to do with racism or being a member of a fringe element of society. This is just common sense. You even look at the Kennel Club. There's various assurances with the Kennel Club that dogs haven't to be interbred too much because it leads to health problems. It's obviously a problem. It's in the country now because of various sections of society. But at the end of the day, I do actually think it will be an almost impossible bill to enforce. How do you know about it? Who's going to admit to it? I mean, there's probably just as many people driving around without bloody car insurance, which is far more devastating to the rest of us. If you want to go ahead and marry your batshit crazy cousin and have another generation of batshit crazy loons, then that's up to you. I don't really want to get involved in it. It's the strain on the health service that's the real problem. But then again, there's strains on the health service with a number of issues, but the biggest strain of all is the lack of government thought. The process that goes into running the NHS, diversity, equity and inclusion managers that are no more capable of doing the job than somebody who isn't diverse, equitable or inclusive. You might as well just get someone who can do the frigging job. Just get someone, interview them, ask yourself the question, can he do this job, she do this job? If they can, you're on a winner. If you're employing them because of what they look like or the background that they're from, the chances are they're not going to do the job to the best of the ability that the job should be done at. That's it. We should be employing on merit. And what people don't realise, because the mainstream media won't tell you, is lots and lots of huge corporations, including BlackRock, are backing away from diversity, equity and inclusion. Because guess what? Now they've experienced it for a few years, it just isn't working. All the Silicon Valley corporates are thinking this way. They're just not announcing it. They're just not telling everybody. It's like these sort of people who get it wrong and can't admit to it. If I get something wrong, first thing I do is I put a post out, apologise, I got it wrong, I'm not infallible, I'm trying my best, and you should know if I've got it wrong, and it saves you from getting it wrong. I've no problem with that. And that's why when people say, oh, you should be an MP, no, because when MPs get it wrong, they never admit to it. The last 3 years shows you just how many things they got wrong. Every single law they laid down during lockdown, they got wrong. Has anybody admitted to it? For crushing businesses and separating families, loved ones dying alone. Has anybody owned up to that and apologised? Still waiting. So you see, we have to be abreast of things without being down about it, because unfortunately we're governed currently, and have been for 15 years, by politicians who simply aren't up to the job. The calibre has dropped and dropped and dropped. You've even got a slip of a lass, I'm going to call her, which is Angela Rayner, no brainer from Angela Rayner. She's come up with a £150 million building scheme for new homes for folk. We all know who they're going to go to, don't we? Because we haven't really got a housing crisis, it's an immigration crisis. And people who have been born and bred here, who have paid taxes in generation after generation, are still sat on housing lists while newcomers get put in front of the queue. That will never work. That will never go down well with taxpayers. It's ludicrous. Then we've got now, I think it's up to £10 million a day for people languishing in hotels with food, accommodation, clean linen and not a care in the world. That's the other thing that I always find annoying with the way they've handled these asylum seekers, which are really 75 to 90% chances looking for a better life. Don't blame them. I don't blame them. They're just seizing the opportunity of what's available. TikTok too, the mates are texting them, come here, look at this, showing them a video with the phones of the hotel rooms that they're sitting in. And you're sat there in some shithole in the desert or wherever you're from thinking, I'll have a bit of that. You can't blame them. I blame the politicians. It's always the politicians. It's never the people involved. Now, the thing is, all they need to do with the illegal crossings is insist on identification, and you would eliminate the criminal element. You'd eliminate them because they can't give you their identification. They're criminals, and we would have the right to deport immediately, and that's what should be going on. This business of Starmer saying he's going to do it, it's just hot air. He's not got the capabilities of doing it. The RNLI is like a taxi service. Anybody still donating to that crew? Because, when I see that they're sending money for swimming costumes for people who wear burqas to foreign countries in Africa, just buy some lifeboats and get some crew. That's what you're supposed to be doing. Anyway, the thing is, we haven't got the right politicians, but we've got some good politicians that are ready to basically fill their shoes when the time comes. And that's why we've just got to get through this next period. A lot of the planning that goes into what Angela Rayner says about building houses and the planning for other stuff, it just takes too long for it to be even a concern. And as far as Ed Miliband goes, very interesting backers who he's got. Wow, yeah, a lot of green energy companies that back Ed. And of course, as you know, that you can become a millionaire in that industry just by getting government subsidies, because that's what you're making your money on. What can I say? Where do subsidies come from? They come from the taxpayer. That's us. No need to thank us. You never do. You just keep taxing us. So unfortunately, our energy in this country is 4 times as high as it should be. Some claim it's the highest electricity prices in the world. And there's absolutely no need for it to be like this at all. But we need to complain to our MPs, don't we? We need to let them know that we're not sitting here silent, waiting to be knocked down like ducks. We are sitting here waiting to get you out and get better people in.